Jermaine Lole has committed to the Louisville Cardinals. What does his addition mean for the Louisville defense? And is he the biggest commitment in the Scott Satterfield era? We will answer both of those questions on this episode of the show. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone. I also do some PA analysis work for the university in various sports. I want to take this time, as always, to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week. Your team every day. It was announced at the beginning of the weekend on Friday that the Cardinals received a commitment from Arizona State defensive line transfer Jermayne Lole. Obviously, a huge addition to the program. We will talk about what his addition means to the defense as a whole. We will discuss why he is one of the top two commitments of the Scott Satterfield era here at Louisville. And then finally, we will discuss the Cardinal baseball team clinching the ACC Atlantic Division championship. To start out with, though, we'll talk about the commitment as a whole. Jermaine Lole's visit to the Cardinals program this past weekend. Not this past one, but the weekend before. So I think it's is it the 15th through the 17th? Regardless, I'm really losing track of my days. It might be the 13th or the 15th. Whatever. There wasn't a lot of news regarding how it went. Now, there was a ton of speculation that the visit went well. All signs were kind of discreetly pointing to a possible commitment brewing in the works. But as the week went on, you have some Lowell fans kind of looking around, wondering what's going on, because if Lole was to continue to make his visits, it seems like the possibility of him coming to the Derby City and playing football next fall would likely, lose its probability with each visit that he made. And it seems like there was rumors of a possible big NIL package that Florida was going to, offer to Lole, who Florida was who he was supposed to visit next. But on the day of his visit, or the scheduled day of his visit, Lole announces his commitment to the Cardinals. Now, obviously, we spoke last week in depth about what his commitment would mean to the program. We'll kind of, gloss over that a little bit, refresh you. In 3 seasons at Arizona State, his first season, 27 total tackles, had 71 in 2019. And then in 2020, when he played 4 games due to a shortened season in the Pac-12 due to the coronavirus, he had 24 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 fumble forced, and 1 fumble recovered, in 2 pass deflections. Coming into the 2021 campaign by Pro Football Focus, he was rated as the number 2 interior defensive lineman in the country and the 24th best player nationally, regardless of position. Now, obviously, Pro Football Focus, some like it, some don't. It seems like it's more appealing to those on the analytical side of things, but regardless, I mean, that's huge to begin with. Yes, I think it was a triceps injury that forced him to miss all of last season. Ultimately decides to enter the transfer portal and visits Louisville, and the rest is history. Lole's commitment is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Louisville Cardinals. Defensively speaking, Scott Satterfield and company did a lot to address their needs in the transfer portal and in the recruiting class. Linebacker-wise, yes, you lost CJ Avery, and what'd you do? You went out and you replaced him with Momo Sonogo from Mississippi. You lost Quinterio Cole, some other members of the secondary. What'd you do? Well, you went out and you got MJ Griffin from Temple. You got Jalen Alexander from Duke. You got Quincy Riley from Middle Tennessee State. You got Nicario Harper from the FCS ranks. You got Jay Williams from USC. And you got Jarvis Brownlee Jr. from Florida State. You have got a handful of other guys. If I'm missing anyone, I do apologize. But you get the vibes, and you get some some high school guys. They got a 4-star recruit rated on Rivals, Jeremiah Caldwell, committed to the program, a late signee that will probably be some solid depth for next season. So you address the linebacking committee, in which you had some, you had a need for. You definitely overhauled the secondary and the defensive backs department. The only position that I kind of looked at, and this was my main area of need coming into the offseason, was the defensive line, more specifically the interior, because I think at the pass rushing positions, you're in good hands. You've got Yaya Diaby, you've got Ashton Gelati, Popeye Williams, your highest rated signee is edge rusher. You've got Selah Brown as well. So you've got some guys on the outside that can really make an impact. The interior was where I was like, okay, we really must be banking on a lot of these guys that are already in the defensive line room to be making the next step in their respective development. And as they should. I mean, they should be, hoping that these guys take a next step forward. But I think that in terms of areas of need, you needed to go out and you needed to get a guy that would be an instant impact player. And what did Scott Satterfield and company do? They went out and they added one of the best interior defensive linemen in the country, not just in the transfer portal, but in the country as a whole. Jermaine Lole, being 6'2", 305 pounds, he's very, very solid in terms of run defense and, clogging up the middle. And whether Louisville decides to run a 3-4 or a 4-3 base package, I think that he would be able to run either of those. And he's run both of those at Arizona State. But on top of that, and I think that this is probably one of the things that gets a little bit overlooked, is his ability to get after the passer. Now, you don't necessarily see that reflected in the box score in his career statistics when, his career high in sacks was in the last season that he played, 2020, where he had a sack and a half. And I think in the year prior to that was 1 sack. But being able to play on the edge and in the middle is extremely versatile, because you never truly know what a season has to offer, unfortunately, with the injury bug and stuff like that. So if there was to be a injury to the Louisville defensive ends room, to where you lose a guy, that plays a ton of snaps, and the Lord forbid that happen, but you can't really rule anything out in terms of sports and stuff like that. So you have to be prepared for the inevitable and for the unthinkable. So, him being able to step outside and be a defensive end, an option there, or also, just being able to be a force in the middle. I see this move as just overall shaking the Louisville defense up and adding a different dynamic. You add a true game changer, and you see how well, if interior defensive linemen can truly set the standard for your defense. I mean, you look at the greatest defenses in history. I mean, you go back to look at Georgia. I mean, Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. It all started with the pressure that was created from the defensive line. Jermaine Lole, his impact will not only be able to get after the quarterback and help in the running defense department, but it's also going to clear up some opportunities for guys like Yaya Diaby, for Ashton Gelati, to where, opposing offensive linemen are having to, possibly double team Lole in certain situations. And that could also help for whoever the other defensive lineman is, whether that be Des Tell, Henry Bryant, so on and so forth. There are a couple different options that you could look at there. But Jermaine Lole, presumed day one starter and one of the best defenders in the ACC, in my opinion. Is he the biggest commitment in the Scott Satterfield era, though? We're going to answer that here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Built Bar. Look, I love brownies, but you know what I love more? Brownie batter. Sometimes I eat half the batter just while I'm making the brownies. Imagine if you could lick the brownie spatula then and also get some protein in. Well, you're in luck, because Built has a new creation, and this one is better than ever, the Brownie Batter Puff. You heard me right. This puff takes protein bars to a whole new level. For those that aren't aware of what a puff is, it is a protein-infused marshmallow. If you've listened to past shows, you've heard me talk about the birthday cake puffs, which are absolutely delicious. And not only Puffs, but all of the Built Bar products are covered in 100% real chocolate, and you get all of the healthy benefits of a protein bar while having double the flavor. And there are so many different flavors to choose from in the traditional protein bar category. So do yourself a favor. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Once again, that's using the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Cardinal fans, I can't say thank you enough for making Locked On Louisville your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day that is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. When I look back to the last, 3 years and some change since Scott Satterfield has been here, December 2018, I had to question what or who is the biggest commitment in his tenure here at Louisville. There's a couple of names, Popeye Williams is a name to look at. There could have been Chuba Purdy, but Purdy ended up decommitting and signing with Florida State. It seems like that title would be kind of up for the taking, and I wondered after Friday, is Jermaine Lole the biggest commitment that the Cardinals have received under Scott Satterfield? I would say he's top two, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention Pierce Clarkson, the highly rated 4-star quarterback from California, who is one of the best quarterback prospects in the 2023 class. Now, look, I get it. He has to ultimately sign and get on campus. So if you are going to disqualify Pierce Clarkson from this conversation due to the fact that he is just a commitment right now, and he is not a signee and has not stepped foot on campus and enrolled, that's fair. But for the sake of this argument, I'm going to consider Pierce Clarkson because of the impact that he has had on Cardinal football recruiting. Simply put, the 2023 class, Flyville 23, has the potential to be the highest rated class in school history. Since recruiting databases and services came to be a thing. Just from an overall talent perspective, all of the momentum that he has generated from multiple 4-star commitments early on to now having, multiple guys coming in. The number one running back in the 2023 class is coming to visit the Cardinals on June 17th. That is big news for this program. And a lot of it is because of what Pierce Clarkson has brung to this Cardinal program in terms of the recruiting energy and stuff like that. So it kind of goes back and forth with Pierce Clarkson, because I don't necessarily think the Lole commitment has a big of an impact off the field as the Pierce Clarkson one does, just because they're in different situations. Lole is a grad transfer, I believe, but regardless if he's a grad or not, he is a transfer. So it's a little bit different in terms of recruiting the transfer portal and having guys go play at the same school than rooting high school recruits that play on the same high school team or travel team or what have you. So Pierce Clarkson's probably still number one in my opinion, but Jermaine Lole has to be the biggest transfer or recruit that will be ultimately eligible up until this point. If you're kind of sitting 2023 class off to the side a little bit, pushing it off to the side, and you're asking, outside of this upcoming class, is he the biggest commitment of Scott Satterfield's tenure? And it's a no-brainer for me. Number one, like we mentioned in the last segment, he fills the top position of need. You are getting one of the best defenders and overall players in the country into your program. That cannot be understated. People talk about, oh yes, you have to get the wins, and yes, I do agree, because the results have to show. But one of the reasons why people were bashing Scott Satterfield in the offseason and questioning him as a recruiter was, can he go out there and get big name transfers? Because with the transfer portal, the one-time transfer rule, getting to essentially allow it to turn into almost like traditional recruiting, the transfer portal was at Louisville's disposal. They had needs that needed to be filled. They had the scholarships to do so. They went out and they added a ton of defensive backs to a defensive backs room that needed bodies. They got Momo Sanogo, who top guy from Mississippi. You went out offensively. You got D. Wiggins to replace Justin Marshall, which is likely an upgrade. You got Tyler Hudson, an FCS All-American. And then you got Tyon Evans from Tennessee, who is, a home run threat, lightning in a bottle type option that you can use out of that backfield. But Jermayne Lole is a different caliber addition to this program because you go from adding and this is no disrespect to any of the other guys that they've added. I'm not saying that, but I think that this is more of a testament to the type and caliber of player that Lole is. You go out and you get a player that, number one, he fits what you're looking for and what you need, but also just the overall, talent that you have. I mean, the number 2 ranked interior defensive lineman, regardless of conference, the 24th best player in the country, regardless of position. I don't care how you feel about Pro Football Focus. Just the fact that he got that type of recognition is huge. But another aspect of it and why it's so big is they went toe-to-toe with the big dogs in the country and got one of the best defensive prospects in the transfer portal. They convinced a top player in the country not to visit the University of Florida, not to visit the University of Oregon, not to go to USC, which is in his home state. You can't overlook that. This is a huge recruiting victory for Scott Satterfield, one that he desperately needed. Now, regardless if you think about any of these other 2023 guys that they've gotten committed, which at the end of the day, I think that the point still stands. You do have to get the signature on the dotted line. These guys still do have to enroll at the university, so it's a little bit different when it's a transfer because it's kind of a quick turnaround. There's not a lot of you don't see a lot of transfers committing and then decommitting. So yeah, I think that overall, Scott Satterfield deserves his props here. He deserves his flowers. He went out and got one of the best defensive players in the country, and it cannot be understated. I've seen multiple people out on social media like, oh, Louisville must be throwing a lot of money Jermaine Lole's way for him to be, going there. It's kind of where we're at. I mean, I don't think anyone's naive enough to know that the NIL aspect of things is a huge factor in recruiting because players can make money off of their name, image, and likeness now. So they might go to a place where they get the most, incentive for their name. And if anything, this is a benefit, and this is encouraging for the University of Louisville going forward is the fact that if this was maybe centered around an NIL package that Lole is to receive, that means a ton. That means that Louisville is on top of the ball and they are acting accordingly with the current landscape of the NCAA and in college sports. So I don't get this stance of, oh, they must be throwing a bag his way. They must be, backing up the Brinks truck and unloading all the money. I just find it hard to believe that those same fans would be saying the same thing if he were to commit to their school. But I get it. Denial is the first step in the grieving process. So not to be arrogant or anything like that. I just see that way too much to where everyone is being self-righteous. NIL is what it is. And for many schools, it's about navigating the NIL and trying to put themselves in the best situations to compete with other schools. And for Louisville to go out there and compete with some of the best programs in the country and come away with a commitment from Lole is huge. So we will continue to talk about the football team as the offseason progresses. But as of right now, we're going to finish the show discussing the baseball team winning the ACC Atlantic Division with a series victory over the top 10 ranked Virginia Cavaliers. We will discuss what went right for the Cardinals this weekend and why I'm going to say, I told you so, here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts in their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? When you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, it allows you to save time and money. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you could ever need, from brake parts, tail lamps, to motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there "How did you hear about us" box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. I told you so. This only applies to the fan base, the part of the fan base that tweeted at me and also just tweeted in general that I saw on my timeline after the first weekend, the opening weekend, and going into the first 2 weeks, that this team was not good enough, and that this basically claiming that the sky was falling because the team struggled 2 weeks into the season. And I try to tell people, relax, have patience, and trust in Dan McDonnell. Baseball is one of those sports where it's all about momentum and getting into a groove. Softball's the same way. Give these guys time to figure things out. Now, are they perfect? No. They still have some things they need to work on. But as of right now, they're going into the ACC tournament tomorrow, being the champions of the ACC Atlantic Division. They are the number 2 overall seed in the conference. They will take on their pool consists of Georgia Tech and Pittsburgh. But the regular season was on the line this past weekend. They got a series win over the 10th ranked Virginia Cavaliers. On Friday, 4-1 Thursday, 4-1 victory. Jared Polin continuing to look very, very impressive. He had seven innings of work, 2 hits, only 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts through 93 pitches. Michael Persecki came in for the last 2 innings, only allowed 2 hits and had 2 strikeouts, no earned runs. 4-1 victory on Thursday. And that was a game to where it was a big weather delay. And the game really didn't end till well after midnight, like 12:30, 1 o'clock. So props to the guys for staying focused and being able to focus back in. However, on Friday, the wheels kind of fell off the wagon a little bit. A big loss. It was 16-7. Virginia scored the first 7 runs of the game in the first 3 innings. Carter Lohman kind of struggled on the dish or at the dish for the Cardinals. Pitched 2 1/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 7 runs. 5 of those were earned, 4 walks to go with 2 strikeouts, 79 pitches. Evan Webster, inning and 2/3 of work, 7 hits, 3 runs. Cade Grundy, an inning, 3 hits. And then after that, the bullpen kind of mellowed out. Caleb Corbett, Cam Robinson, Kyle Walker, and J.R. Langworthy, and Jacob Ferris came in and kind of righted the ship a little bit. But at that point, there wasn't a lot of much you could do, being down 16-7. Dalton Rushing had a big day at the plate. He was 1 for 4, but had 2 runs. JT Benson was 2 for 2 out in right field. He is finally fully healthy. But the rubber match on Saturday, the victory that ultimately helped the Cardinals claim the ACC Atlantic Division with the help of the Miami Hurricanes for defeating the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. A 11-3 drumming on Saturday. Carson Leggett got the victory for the Cardinals on the mound. He had 2 innings of work, 1 hit. Tate Keener, 4 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs. Ryan Hawks pitched an inning and 2/3, and Michael Persecki once again came in and was lights out for the Louisville bullpen. Ben Metzinger, have a day, Metzinger. 3 for 5 on Saturday with 3 RBIs. Dalton Rushing 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Levi Usher continues to have a very good year. 1 for 5 with 2 RBIs. And Isaac Humphrey, 3 for 4 with an RBI. So the Cardinals finished the regular season pretty solid. 38-16-1. Now, as we mentioned, this team still has some stuff to work on, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they are in line for a possible top 8 seed. Kendall Rogers of, I think it's Baseball America or D1 Baseball, I forget which one he's with, I do apologize, had projected the Cardinals inside of the top 8 as number 7. I would have to assume if they were able to get out of their pool and get to the semifinals that the Cardinals would likely be a top 8 seed regardless, but still a solid week in Charlotte would be exactly what the doctor ordered for the baseball team. But like I said, when it comes to baseball and sports like that, early on in the season, you're not going to go undefeated. Sure, it sucks to lose to the teams that maybe you shouldn't lose to, but at the end of the day, you have to give them time. This is one of the best offenses that Dan McDonnell has had here at Louisville. The pitching still needs to stay consistent, but I'm very interested to see what this team can do in the ACC tournament. But overall, we talked about the significance of Jermaine Lole's commitment for the Cardinals' defense, discussed why he is a top 2 commitment in Scott Satterfield's tenure here at Louisville, and also talked about the Louisville baseball team winning the ACC Atlantic Division. I want to give a quick shout out to the Locked On ACC podcast. If you're looking for any type of conference news, look no further than that podcast. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You're going to get no better content than that. So be sure to check that out. But hey, that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day, and we will see you right back here